Welcome back to the 6th Gear Garage. I'm out here in my 24 by 40 pole barn, and I had a lot of questions in the previous video. That video was really meant to be an overall view of the process to build a pole barn, but I got so many questions that it's time to make a Q&A video. So let's go through them all. The biggest question I got was the cost. Now I had this listed in the description, but people don't read descriptions. So here we go. The breakdown for the cost. The excavation and the stone fill for the building pad was $3,900. And the 4-inch concrete floor with 12-inch drain that you see back there, all that was included for $5,500. Now that leaves $16,800 for all the building materials and the labor to construct the building. Was it cheaper to use wood instead of steel? Honestly, I don't know. I didn't price out steel. I went with wood because, one, I'm familiar with it, having had a wood pole barn at my last place. Two, I like the fact that the wood is going to be easier to finish off the interior once I do insulation and electric and all that. Now on a steel building, you don't have the wooden trusses on the inside, and that's going to be a great place to attach a ceiling. Where are you located and who did the pole barn? I am in northern central Ohio. This building was built by Burkholder Construction, and they are out of Ashland, Ohio. I don't know if they have a website. I've got a phone number. I can put that down in the description. And no, they didn't sponsor any of these videos or give me any kind of discount for putting their name out there. Who leveled the lot? They use an independent contractor hired through them. I didn't pay the contractor anything. I paid everything to Burkholders directly. But the independent contractors did a great job as well. Who manufactured the kit you purchased? It actually was not a kit. I started out by looking online at some prefab kits, and once you get them here, you get them shipped, you still have to pay someone to build them, and that was still around $5 grand. So in the end, I would have had to pay about the same, up to $1,000 more to have someone put up a kit. And then you're talking about different companies being involved, and if something didn't work out, it could be one company pointing the finger at, the builders or vice versa. So it's just easier to, write the check to one person, have one company handle it all, and it's a lot less headache for me. Was that all Amish that built that? No, actually no Amish. I'm pretty sure they were Mennonite. They drove trucks and they had cell phones. It was actually the Amish that built my last pole barn, and they showed up every day in a horse and buggy. And they wouldn't touch anything electric. They would use gas-powered stuff, though. They actually had a gas-powered table saw. I thought it was so cool. They put a little Honda motor inside of a wooden table saw, and it was so sketchy. It had no safety devices on it, but it worked. They don't care about safety anyways. But now the Amish were really cool guys, and these guys were all pretty cool too. At the end of the video, it sounded like the Amish didn't do as good of a job on your last pole barn. I will say the Amish did an outstanding job for the price, and that price was just under $15K, I believe. And that was a 32 by 40 with 12-foot ceilings. And here I've got a 24 by 40 with 10-foot ceilings. Now that 32 by 40 with 12-foot ceilings also had two 10-foot overhead doors, 8 by 8 rear door, a man door, 4 windows. It was wrapped in OSB, and then vinyl siding on top of that. The trusses were 2 feet on center, and there was a 6/12 pitch roof, so it had extra room for an attic where you could stand up top, and it had shingles. So they did all that, and they even ran the tubing for the heated floor for me. All that for the price of under 15 grand, and that's just like a deal of a lifetime. I want to go back into my old hard drive and see what kind of photos and videos I have of that building, because that was way before my channel got big. And I'm going to do another video where I compare this one to that one and kind of show you some of the differences between the two buildings. The only thing I didn't like about my Amish built pole barn was the concrete job. The Amish guys, they did it themselves, finished it themselves, and they don't quite have the tools and the equipment that a professional concrete company has, so it was pretty rough for me. I mean, it'd be fine for like use on a farm, you're just driving tractors in and out, but the floor was kind of bumpy, so if I rolled like a tool cart across or a floor jack, it was pretty rough. And even like all the tools in the toolbox would bounce around as I rolled it across the floor. So I didn't like that, but for the price, you know, it is what it is. I ended up getting a diamond grinder, I ground it all down smooth, and then that was the perfect chance to put down some epoxy, and I had a nice epoxy floor, which I do miss. All right, let's talk about concrete. Somebody asked if that was rebar on the ground. No, they pulled it up a little bit as they were pouring, so it wasn't right on the ground. Okay, somebody said, why pour concrete after the fact? And that's just standard pole barn construction. That's how they build them. You save a lot of money on, I say, labor, time, and materials, because you're not having to pour the slab first, then have the footers, and then build all the studded walls. You definitely get more with that type of construction, but it's also a lot more expensive. And we got another one. Why a pole building if you're just pouring a slab? Just add footers and install walls. No need to worry about future rotting of posts. Once again, cost. I love a traditional style building, but just can't afford it. And you heard the rotting of posts mentioned there. And I got a lot of questions about the posts, so let's move on to the laminated post questions. First of all, let me give you an overview. These posts, they are laminated and they are 3 2x6s adhered together with some kind of adhesive and as well as nails. And they do that versus a traditional solid 6x6 treated lumber post because I was told that the solid 6x6s may not be treated as well in the center because whatever they use doesn't soak up completely versus a 2x6 which can completely be penetrated by that treatment versus a solid 6x6. Also, I guess the laminated posts are a little bit cheaper, so that's probably another reason why. Someone had a very good point. Treated wood today is not the same quality of treatment as in the past. And that is true. Treated wood used to contain, the treatment used to contain some arsenic, and that's obviously toxic. So they no longer put the arsenic in it. It's something different now. I think it switched over, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. Let me know if I'm wrong there. But from what I've read and researched, you know, it hasn't been 40 years yet, but they say that the new posts will last just as long in the ground as the ones that had the old treatment. How many years before the ground rots the post? Again, I don't know. I've heard, you know, it can be good for 40 years before it starts, but then again, it's also 3 feet in the ground, so who really knows? And the post doesn't go directly into the hole with the dirt. It actually goes into the hole which already has concrete at the base. So you're not putting the post on the dirt, it actually sits on concrete. How deep did you bury the posts in the ground? Here in Ohio, northern Ohio, the code states it needs to be below the frost line, and that is 36 inches. So it kind of depends on the region. I guess in the south, probably not 3 feet deep, whereas if you go up into Canada, probably more than 3 feet deep. All right, here we go with some construction questions. Should have had them notch the post for the headers. Transfers the weight through the pole and not the fasteners. And that's a very good point. The Amish actually did that in my last pole barn, and where they used a solid 6x6. I'm guessing they don't do that because the way the laminated posts are, I see the short side facing in, and they just don't notch that. Maybe for structural reasons, I don't know. But someone had a good point is, why don't they just turn the laminated post 90 degrees and you could just chop off 1/3 of the post, which would be one of those 2x6s, and that'd be perfect. And I agree. That does seem like a really good idea. I don't know why they don't do it that way. If anybody does know, let us know. You forgot to insulate the roof. It's going to be noisy when it rains. Yeah, it's loud. I was out here once in a really big rainstorm, and I had my music on my phone playing. I couldn't even hear it with the volume all the way up. So it's really loud. The whole point, though, of this building is that right now it's not an active workshop. It's going to be more for storage of vehicles, of projects waiting to happen, and eventually I'm going to get the electric done out here. I'm going to insulate. I'd like to do foam on the walls, blown in on the ceilings, and then of course finish off the walls and the ceilings, get some lighting out here, and have a nice area to work and have some tools out here. Right now I have everything in the house garage. That's my main workshop area because it does stay warmer. It's at a convenient place to me where I can just run in and out. How is that bare bottom 6 inches on the outside dressed up? It's not. It's just bare wood exposed, or treated wood I mean, but yeah, it's exposed. And he's talking about the skirts along the bottom edge. That's how my last pole barn was too, and they just kind of left that exposed. I went ahead and I did plant some grass seed around the outside, and that will hopefully grow up enough to kind of hide that a little bit, but it's never been a problem as far as rot or anything like that from being exposed to the elements on the outside. One more about the construction. Might be professionals doing it, however, they should have used a house wrap. House wrap, like the tieback wrap that you've all seen when they're building a new house, that isn't needed on this kind of building because it's just metal. Now on my last pole barn, they had OSB on the outside, and then they put the house wrap on the OSB, and then they put the vinyl siding on the outside of that, and that acts as a moisture barrier. On something like this, you don't need it because really the inside of the metal is treated just like the outside, and it's not going to cause any rot or rust or any kind of decay from any condensation that may form. All right, one more question. Here we go. He says, that is a fantastic deal. Too bad there's not a deal like that in Washington State. It's pretty cheap to live in Ohio. To me though, this price seemed rather expensive compared to the deal I got on my last place. And I think now looking back, that was just a deal of a lifetime. And I looked everywhere to find a price like that again, and 26.6K was about the lowest price I could find. One of the quotes I got was from an Amish guy. He actually got a ride out here, showed up in like a minivan, came out and gave me a price, and it was higher than the 26.5K. So yeah, that deal I got on my last building was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And we'll take a look at that building in a future video. I've got that old hard drive with some pictures and some videos, and I'm going to dig that up, and we'll do a comparison of the two buildings and show you guys how the Amish build. So thanks for watching, and if you have any more questions, let me know down in the comments, and I'll get those answered as well.